Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our show. My name is Justine Thomas.
And my name's Gareth Thomas.
And this is The T Word. We are a brother-sister duo who love talking about politics and what's been going on in the week's events. Hi, Gareth. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, I'm absolutely brilliant. Well, I say I'm absolutely brilliant. I'm pretty disgusted at all of this Labour sleaze. The party that came into power saying the adults were back in the room, promising that they were going to be whiter than white. What is going on? Are they able to actually retain anybody? Will they retain Keir Starmer beyond the end of next week? I've got absolutely no idea. What are you thinking?
I don't. Not only do I think they've got no idea, I don't think they know what's going on. It's last week it was phase 2, wasn't it? We'd reached phase 2 of the government's plan. I mean, if phase 2 was utter self-destruction, then yeah, it's probably going to plan, isn't it?
I think phase 2 was the reset. I don't know if they've kind of quickly gone into phase 3. I feel like we're in about phase 8 or phase 10, the final phase. I really don't know. I feel phased by it all. But they've lost so many people. Do you know, have you heard about the latest resignation today, which is pretty important, especially for people in the Labour camp are very, very concerned about this resignation.
No,
So
I
have you
don't
heard
know.
about?
I actually no. I must admit, I'm not up to date as it stands. But go on, hit me with it.
So they've suffered another loss. So there's a guy called Paul Ovenden, who is a director of strategy for Number 10, and he's very aligned with Morgan McSweeney, who's in a bit of hot water, I think, over his alignment with the Prince of Darkness, Lord Mandelson. But Mr. Ovenden has resigned, and I believe I'm right in saying that he's Keir Starmer's speechwriter. And given that there's a Labour conference coming up, this is very bad news that he's gone. It's a bit odd that he's resigned over some messages that I think are about 8 years old. Apparently, they're a bit fruity, quite vile, some might say, and they made comments about Diane Abbott in a Labour WhatsApp group or a Teams group or something. And suddenly, after all these years, it's been decided that he's had to resign, he's had to go. So there's definitely something fishy going on there. It seems to me that that's probably part of a bigger strategy, maybe to undermine Keir Starmer, which seems like it's pretty straightforward to undermine Keir Starmer at the moment.
Well, does Keir Starmer not write his own speeches then? Is that what we're saying? Does he not?
Well,
Does it? I've got visions of like Winston Churchill, when Winston Churchill sat in that bunker doing the "We Will Fight on the Beaches." You know, he's there. Who played him? Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman, when he's there redoing his speech and doing it all. You tell me Keir Starmer doesn't do that? He doesn't do that. The Island of Strangers comment that didn't come out of his brain. Then is that what we're saying?
apparently not. He
No.
blamed that on a scriptwriter and said if he'd known what it meant, he never would have said it.
He seems to
So
blame a lot of things on other people lately, doesn't he? You know.
I don't know
But
what he takes responsibility for. I can't think of anything that he's taken responsibility for. I mean, I believe today he's taken responsibility for the fact that there were some emails that were being investigated between Lord Mandelson and Epstein. And he's taken responsibility for the fact that the emails were being investigated, but he didn't know what was in the emails. So it was absolutely okay for him to come out and defend Mandelson and say, no, there's nothing to see here. It's absolutely fine. He's got
he's
my full
basically
support.
he's taken responsibility for knowing absolutely nothing about what he's meant to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you're accusing me of not knowing what I'm doing, or actually not reading any emails, or doing anything that I should be doing in the role of Prime Minister, I take full responsibility.
Yeah, exactly that. So it's concerning when he gives his full backing, because obviously just 2 weeks ago he gave his backing to Angela Rayner, full backing, and then he gave his full backing or full confidence to Mandelson. And yes, maybe he'd be giving full confidence to himself this week. I don't
It's
know.
like the kiss of death, isn't it? It's like the kiss of death.
Kiss.
He'll appoint someone new, and he'll be like, "I just want to say, I've got full." Hey, shh, stop! Don't say anything. Just shush, Keir. Shut your mouth. It's literally like the kiss of death, isn't it?
It would
But
be
yeah,
like saying it'd be like saying Macbeth, won't it? When you can't say Macbeth, it will be that sort of thing.
yeah, he's not had much luck, has he? But he does look a bit incompetent, if I'm being totally honest. I mean, there's a lot going on about this Mandelson thing, isn't there? That he's had the information, or even the security services have provided, a lot of information about Mandelson and why his appointment might have been a bit of a bad idea. But it just appears he's either ignored it completely, or he's just totally incompetent. But I'm not sure which one you'd want to choose out of the two, because obviously, he stood up and gave his full confidence to Mandelson, and then obviously it turns out he's best pals with one of the most prolific paedophiles of all time. So it's just not a great look, is it? I mean, it's just like I say, same with Angela Rayner. He throws all his weight behind her without any kind of knowledge of what he's even talking about. I would say he literally, it's coming across as though he just doesn't know what he's talking about half the time. And this is a guy that was the head of public prosecutions. I mean, this is meant to be an intelligent guy. I can understand. I mean, how many emails do you think a prime minister gets a day?
That's a good question.
He's got advice. Surely he must have. I can't remember now. There was a figure came out. Apparently, so something like the government. There was something like 2,500 PAs that work in central government. I mean, they've got more PAs than I don't know what else. But surely someone should be reading those emails and maybe filtering them. I think Keir, you might want to read this one. You might want to read this. His speechwriter, when he's writing his speech for the Commons, hold on one sec, I've got full confidence. That's a good line. I like that line. And he writes it and gives it. Maybe someone would have said to him, you might want to read this email, but obviously. But it just screams of incompetence, doesn't it? It's like,
well,
guy,
like you say, he's in trouble because he's either not competent at assessing people based on information in front of him, and therefore he's exercising very poor judgment, or he's not getting the information that he should be getting, and therefore he's not appointing the right people around him. And like you say, maybe he gets thousands of emails, whatever. They've got all these advisors. It's not just about emails. I mean, I think that there is probably a budget in number 10 for a print copy of the newspaper every day. And I would imagine that somewhere in number 10, there is a table every day that's got every single copy. It's got a copy of every single of the main newspapers in the UK on the table. And you would expect the Prime Minister to at least walk past that table, or to at least maybe have a cheeky look at The Sun or The Guardian, no doubt, in Keir Starmer's case, and actually wonder what's in the news. I mean, you're obviously a very busy guy or gal if you're the Prime Minister, but surely at some point you've got to have a cheeky look at your phone and say, do you know what? I'll just check my WhatsApp and see if any of my friends have sent me a message. And when they're all sort of, messaging going, OMG, OMG.
God, can you imagine being Keir Starmer's friend?
Is nobody telling him anything?
Can you imagine being Keir Starmer's friend? Like, literally.
No.
As Keir Starmer, apart from Sadiq Khan, he's my friend, actually, Mr. Trump. Do you know what I mean? Shut up, Keir, you idiot. I mean, literally, has the guy got any friends whatsoever? Can you imagine being sat in a room with him?
No.
Gareth, how are you today? It looks very nice. I mean, he's just everything that he does. He's just the most robotic, just the most boring, just pathetic excuse. I mean, he just comes across so badly. He doesn't have any kind of what do you call it? Personable skills. He's no likability whatsoever. I don't know what it is. It's just a really weird way that he's got of behaving. The way that he carries himself just makes him so instantly dislikable. So I don't believe he has any friends. I don't think anyone likes him. Probably
he looks very uncomfortable around other people
in his own
and maybe. And with himself and people that he doesn't know. And I was watching a video the other day. I'm sure it was Jacob Rees-Mogg who said he's actually a really warm person. But But I mean, I'm a fan of JRM, but I mean, I'm struggling to believe that Keir Starmer's won. But I haven't met him myself. But he just seems to be really wooden and awkward with people. It's like he does not enjoy being in the public eye. He doesn't like it.
Do you
And
think he's insecure? Because some people clam up. You know, some people have like
I mean, he's got to be the prime.
charisma block. You know, charisma block. When they're around other people, they can't just turn it. Some people can turn it on and off. I mean, lots of people say that about Boris Johnson. How he could, I think Boris Johnson was a clown as well. I just thought he was a bumbling idiot. But Keir Starmer, he's got no kind of likable qualities. He
No,
just
he's not
doesn't come across
likable.
as likable at all.
No.
You know, and I kind of feel at this point, I'm starting to feel sorry for him because I just don't know. I mean, it's as though they are just trying to completely dismantle their own party and the country along
Well,
with it. It's very strange.
yeah, but you've got, within the Labour Party, at first glance, people think, oh, it's a political party. It's just a big homogenous lump of people. But it isn't. Within any political party, there are always different factions. And he is not regarded as being on the very left of his party, is he? I mean, when you look at, we've talked about the left party or whatever it is, the hokey cokey party, what's the name? Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn's party. And now you've got Andy Burnham, who's apparently on manoeuvres, who, Mayor of Manchester, apparently he's thinking of making a play for the leadership. But I mean, the idea.
He can't become leader. He will never be. He's not going to be leader of the Labour Party. Well, not when they're in power, anyway.
Well, the only way he could potentially become leader is to be leader of the Labour Party, you actually have to be an MP, and he is not an MP.
Yeah, he's not an MP.
But the idea that there's a Manchester MP who's been suspended. The idea suspended from the party, the idea that Manchester MP is going to resign and there's going to be a by-election and Andy Burnham is going to sweep in, win that by-election and then suddenly take over the leadership of the Labour Party is pretty remote, I would suggest. And actually, it's a bit offensive just to assume that somebody who's had nothing to do with campaigning in a general election, it was not even an MP in a general election, actually is so, what's the term, full of themselves that they think, oh, it's fine, I'll just stand to be an MP and I'll come in and take over being leader of the Labour Party. And I think he's tried to promote Lucy Powell to be the new deputy leader, because obviously since Arrange has resigned, there has been a vacant spot in the leadership of the Labour Party. So I think we're down to two candidates, aren't we? Bridget Phillipson, who, ironically, people accuse Margaret Thatcher of stealing the milk from the school children. I mean, Bridget Phillipson has actually stolen schools from school children because she's forced entire schools to close with her awful, ill-informed, ill-advised and ineffective VAT on schools policy. So she's very much she's in the last two, isn't she? And the other one is Lucy Powell, who was sacked in that reshuffle. Yeah, she's the one who said that mentioning the rape gangs was a dog whistle. So they're the last two. But I think Lucy Powell is supposed to be an ally of Burnham. The idea that he's backed her in order to sort of squeeze himself in as the leader. I mean, who knows? I'm not overly familiar with the backstabbing, the vagaries of the Labour Party, but all I know is that the entire Labour Party seems to me to be a complete car crash at the moment.
Well, I think British politics is a car crash, isn't it? If you look at the last flipping 14, 15 years, it just literally is parties fighting amongst themselves and imploding. And it's as though the British public, the actual nation, is just a side quest for a lot of these guys. I think a lot of these people are just in it for their own ends, career politicians. And I think a lot of them just haven't got the best interests of the country at heart when they're going about the day-to-day business. It's like you say, it's just ridiculous that Andy Burnham was just going to, swoop in and take over the Labour. I mean, these guys have been in power a year. They've got the biggest majority of all time, well, not of all time, but they've just got the biggest majority. Within 12 months, they have literally destroyed themselves. And it's at a point now where, the rumours are that the backbenchers are starting to plot against Keir Starmer. But yeah, I mean, at the end I think he should just call a general election. I think he should just take everyone by surprise, admit the fact that it's over. I mean, if the next year is the same as the year that's just gone, or even half, I just don't understand how Labour can survive. All the Conservatives, all the Conservatives. I mean, just to change the subject slightly, you say Andy Burnham, you know, it's a bit arrogant to think you can just swoop in and, you know, take over the leadership of the Labour Party when you're not even an MP. What about the MP crossing the floor, the old
Yeah.
Danny Kruger? I mean, is that another what you call it, a display of arrogance? The fact that you've voted in on a ticket for the Conservatives. I mean, I know Lee Anderson did it as well, but you know, is this something that's going to happen more and more and more? Is the question. And how
I,
much more do you want it to happen? Is another question as well, because that's, you know, that'd be interesting. How many Conservative MPs do Reform actually want to take under the guise of preparing for government?
Yeah, well, that is an interesting question. I mean, ultimately,
Thank you.
based on what the polls are, you're welcome. Based on what the polls are showing at the moment, Reform would have a majority if there was a general election held tomorrow. The problem that Reform UK have got is that they do not have enough people in the party who've got experience of being parliamentarians, of being in any kind of government, whether it's local government or central government. And you've got to have people with that level of experience, because you've got to have people that can understand the system and that can help you get your business of the day through Parliament. So if you get into power with, say, 411 MPs, which I think is what Labour entered into power with, 400 of them have never been an MP before or have got no experience of local or central government. That's going to be a problem, particularly for a party that's actually looking to reform the civil service, or the blob as it's lovingly known. How on earth are you going to have people, even if they're very clever people from business backgrounds, operational backgrounds, military backgrounds? You do need people that understand the processes, that understand the constitution, and that can ensure that the civil service don't run rings around the parliamentarians, which is what the concern is going to be. Now, it's not for me to say that the civil service will try and do that. The civil service, of course, is supposed to be politically neutral, but the civil service isn't politically neutral because people who are civil servants go out and vote in elections. So if you wanted a truly neutral civil service, then one of the things surely that you'd have to do is say that people who were civil servants maybe couldn't vote. Quite an extreme way of trying to get, ensure neutrality. But the other thing that Reform's doing, actually, as a quick aside from your aside, what they actually want to do is to be able to appoint people within the civil service and make those positions political. So I know, for example, Luke Campbell, who's the mayor of Hull. He's an example of where he wanted to appoint advisors, but those advisors had political affiliations, and he was told that he couldn't because he wasn't allowed to appoint politically affiliated people into those posts. But why not? It makes complete sense. If you've been elected into a role and you're the head honcho of something, whether you're a Secretary of State or a mayor of a unitary mayoral authority, then surely the best way for you to get your business through and get your promises done, execute the promises that you made and your pledges to the electorate, is to have people who are absolutely open about being on your side and who are subscribing to your policies. So to circle back then a little bit in terms of people crossing the floor, getting experience in, you've absolutely got to get that experience in. And personally, I don't think it's a problem, but you have to be sure that those people are entering the party for the right reasons. And that would be the question for the leadership of
But
the
surely,
party in question.
surely you get training when you get to Parliament. So the MPs do receive training
What
when
training
they
do
put.
they receive?
Well. Funny you should say. No, I can remember there was a documentary on the BBC when the Conservatives got into power, and it was followed. I can't remember which MP it was, but basically when they were when they were taken to the House of Commons, they got their own office, they get like a welcome pack, they get their kind of do's and don'ts, they kind of get a little A to Z of how it's going to work. And they must have assistants, they must have advisors, they must have people there whose job it is to make sure that they're following the rules. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not just about but it's not just about following the rules. It's about using the constitution and using your political nous to get through Parliament what you want to get through Parliament. Fundamentally,
Yeah, but that's the point. The MPs, though, are the people with the ideas. They get voted because they've got certain opinions or an ideology or whatever, and they say, "Right, this is what I believe." Well, actually, they don't. If they're an independent, they would. But you're on a party. You've got you have a mandate when you voted in. So the party itself says we're going to do this, 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 and this. So the MPs are there to fulfil the manifesto of the party. So they're just
yes.
there to implement their ideas, and their job is to get the blob to push those ideas through. So what you're saying is that without the experience, they wouldn't even know how to do that. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
it's about you've got to get your legislation through Parliament. That's the key thing, and that's not just as straightforward as telling a bunch of civil servants, "Well, they're my manifesto pledges. Go away and do it." I mean, in the first instance, you've got to have well drafted legislation. So I believe I'm right in saying that what Reform UK are working on already is actually drafting legislation, so that by the time they enter into power, they won't have to wait for the drafters to actually do it for them. They'll have drafted it already, because that can take months and months and months. And, one of the key things about legislation is it's got to be drafted well. And you have your committee stages, you've got MPs who are in committees who are talking about what this legislation looks like and what it's actually going to achieve. And you need people who understand how that system works. And also, not only that, you need to make sure that you've got people who are bright enough, and some people who've kind of seen it all before, that knows where the banana skins are in terms of how legislation is drafted. Because ultimately, poorly drafted legislation, if it's enacted, poorly drafted bills, if enacted, just lead to very, very bad laws. And bad laws are not good for anybody, because what they do is they just provide lots and lots of client hours for lawyers, and all it does is increase the workload on the judiciary, because all you'll find is if you've got poorly drafted laws that don't have clarity, you'll end up with lots of people taking the government to court. And
Yeah, but
so,
hold on. What I'm saying is, though, yeah, okay, I get that. But what I'm saying is, in terms of the MPs that are going, are they? How much emphasis are they putting on this? We need to be ready for government, because surely when a new party comes into power, there's always going to be inexperienced people there. I understand they've only got 5 MPs now, so I get it. They've not got a lot of experience, but how much of that is really necessary? I mean, how many experienced people do you need? I mean, like I say, none of them are really experienced up until the point they get in there and get the experience, are they? So basically what I'm trying to say is do they really want to be filling themselves up with disgruntled um, conservatives under the umbrella of experience? Because that's the whole point. That's why people are moving away from the Conservatives, because they don't want to follow the Conservatives anymore. So I'm just worried if the Conservatives now just start defecting en masse to reform, are we just going to end up with a Conservative 2.0 in which all the problems come with them, and we end up with no change and no reform at all? So I get what you're saying. I understand you do need experience. Obviously, you can't just have 400 MPs just turn up at the Parliament, and they're literally like, we don't even know where the toilets are. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, there has to be some experience. Someone needs to
hopefully they'll
show
find
them.
those on the first day.
Someone needs to show them where the B-day is. I get it, but how much? How much is too much? I
Well,
suppose.
I've just thought of a little analogy. I don't know why this has popped into my head. Literally, this has just popped into my head, so it might fall down immediately. You're asking about who you need and what you need. So let's say that you wanted to build, I thought hospital at first, because I used to work in the NHS, as you know. But let's say that you wanted to build a brand new hotel, and you wanted that hotel to be fully functioning, the best in the world, etc., etc. Who would you get to help you build the hotel and operate the hotel, so that on the opening day it was all absolutely fabulous and got all the best reviews? from all the magazines. You would need people from all sorts of different trades, wouldn't you? You'd need builders, you'd need designers, you'd need architects, you would need people who'd run a bar before, people who knew how to buy things, procure things. You'd need cleaning people, people who knew how to change beds in the fastest way possible. And you can bring all of those skills together and you can have people who've done all of those things. But I bet you if you're recruiting those people who've got those specific skills, if they said they'd done all that for hotel chains before, you'd probably be more likely to employ them, wouldn't you? Because you would know that they would understand how a hotel works. So you would know that they would take that skill set. I'm brilliant at laundry or whatever, but if I've done it in a hotel environment for years, that my skill in doing laundry and organizing laundry, I can bring that to that environment. So if the hotel is like the Commons or the hotel is like Parliament, that's my very much pretty weak, but probably not too bad, but off the top of my head. What you wouldn't do is if 400 taxi drivers came along and said, we're really good at taxi driving and we would like to help you build your hotel, you'd probably turn around and say, well, yeah, we'd probably have a couple of you, because although being a taxi driver is nothing to do with building a hotel or running a hotel, you've probably got some transferable skills that might be quite useful. And you seem like you're quite intelligent and quite switched on about the hotel industry. So we'll give a couple of you a punt and we'll take a couple of you, but we're not going to take 400 of you because I'm never going to get my hotel built with you
No,
as being my team.
the
So
analogy is I'd add the same analogy, but what I'm saying in that scenario, the MP is the investor, the person with the overall idea, and the MP is the one that is instructing the suppliers, who in this case would be the blob. So yes, all the experience is there, but the person with the vision is the person who's paying the suppliers to do their job. And that's what I'm saying. Do you if I was a billionaire and I decided, well, I want to build that hotel, I would go out, do a little bit of research, and find the best people who could implement the vision I had. And that's my
yes.
analogy. Is that I don't understand. They've got a whole infrastructure of people designed to push through legislation and advise. And that's what I'm saying is, do they need this experience or not? In a lot of cases, I'd probably say no. Yes, you've got to find your feet, but these are MPs. These are the best of the best. These aren't just normal people who are scared to get their hands dirty. I mean, they are going to hit the ground running, surely.
Who are the defecting MPs?
All the MPs. MPs are infallible. They're the best. They're going to hit the ground running. They're going to know what they're doing. They're going to pick things up very quickly.
I mean,
they're going to read their emails.
I have to disagree.
They're going to read their emails. God damn it! No, but you know what I'm saying. My read your emails. No, but what I'm trying to say is yes, I understand. I'm just thinking sometimes, is it a bit of an excuse? It's like, yeah, we need the experience. We need the. I mean, surely reform every time a Conservative gets in touch with Nigel Farage or Richard Tyson goes, I'm thinking of coming over to you. I mean, you can't turn them away. You cannot turn a Conservative MP away.
I think his issue is what he's got to balance is the desire to get the right people involved. And Nadine Dorries defected, didn't she? You and I were at that Reform UK conference. She defected the day before and then came on the Friday and did a speech. And I'm not saying that she will or will not stand to be an MP, because you've got different things. You've got high profile Conservatives who have already joined, and from other political parties who have already joined Reform UK. That doesn't mean that they necessarily will want to stand as an MP in 4 years' time.
And it's not given. Just because someone stands, that's not to say they're even going to win. Sometimes a lot of people presume, don't they? Well, they'll stand and they'll win. But
yeah, I don't think every high-profile non-reform, anybody who defects to Reform UK from another party who's high-profile, if they are not currently an MP, I don't think it's a given. It's not automatic that they're going to want to have a seat in Parliament. I would imagine that a lot of MPs, once they've served a couple of terms, are probably quite beleaguered. And I'm sure there are many people who've served as MPs and are probably glad that they're well out of it, but would be very happy to help Reform UK in an advisory capacity to ensure that when they get into power, they can do the right things. In fact, I believe Liz Truss has just said very much to the effect of that very, very recently. So
Well,
I
that's the
think,
problem, isn't it? You really want Liz Truss, like giving you
I'm just
and
trying to come.
you've just given me an idea. You've just given me an idea, actually. So why does it have to be a Conservative MP in order to get that experience? Like you just said, Nadine Dorries, Liz Truss, they've offered their advice and that they're
Jacob
offering to.
Rees-Mogg. Jacob
Yes,
Rees-Mogg said that he would help Reform UK, but that he was not going to leave the Conservatives. I think his attitude
he
is
will. He
Reform
will.
UK, Conservative Big C are all part of the Conservative family / movement, and that is
Jacob's
the.
daughter's reform.
She is Mary Rees-Mogg, but that if you
Mm.
are on the right, if you like, the right side of politics, that it's important that the right is able to win the next general election, and that not only is it able to win, but that it's able to seize the reins of power and actually, take the horse in the right direction. And I think, what I was going to say with regards to high profile defectors is, I am sure Nigel Farage is very experienced. He's been around a long time. He's clearly acknowledging that he is going to need some parliamentary help and some parliamentary nous and experience to help him navigate a term in power. What he doesn't want to do is be like Trump in his first term. He wants to hit the ground running like Trump in his second term, and you've just quite simply got to have the very best people around you. I think the other thing is, in terms of defectors, you've got to think that there are always people who are going to be put off by the fact that people are coming over from the Conservative Party. Well, somebody that I know uses the line, everybody came from somewhere. And actually they did. Reform UK cannot remain a party that is full of people who were only ever members of the Brexit Party and former members of UKIP. There aren't enough of those people there for the party to get power. It's got to grow its activist base, its support base, its voter base. You've got to get people out to actually vote. And, you're not going to do that with 20,000 members, are you? So where are all those people going to come from? Well, naturally, they're going to come from other parties. And I think for me, the question I ask is not why are you changing parties? I'm more interested in what are your personal opinions? Where have you stood personally on a range of issues? And does your historical stance on those issues chime with your membership of the party that you're seeking to enter? So when you take somebody like Danny Kruger, it seems to me, from what I've seen and what I know about him, that his policies and the way he's conducted himself is very much aligned with the Reform UK contract, as they call it, with their proposals for when they enter into government. So
Maybe it's a
what's the
case of
problem?
it's not me, it's you. Maybe the Conservatives have changed. Maybe he did. I mean, he's meant to be on the very right of the party, isn't he?
The Conservatives did change. That's why I
Wasn't he
left.
the campaign leader for Robert Jenrick or something? He
Yeah,
was
last
pretty
year
much
for that leadership challenge, and he was very
so.
he was very graceful about Kemi, wasn't he? He said that he wasn't super critical of what she was doing now, but that she was doing it differently. But yeah, he led Jenrick's campaign. But I think the Conservatives have changed, and they changed over time. That's why I left the Conservative Party in 2022. I didn't
Look,
change.
you're another
My,
one. You're
my
another
print.
look. Can't get
Well,
rid of him.
I,
Ex-Conservatives, look. You're everywhere. Do you know what I mean?
I was a member of the Conservative Party for about 30 years. But where else would I have been a member of? So I had to come from somewhere. But I left the party in late 2022 because the Conservative Party changed. How it was governing and what they were doing was not in line with my personal beliefs. And so I left the party. And, you know, I haven't changed. I haven't done anything different, but the Conservatives had. So I've been rock solid in my beliefs on a range of fundamental issues and absolute Conservative principles. Well, what am I supposed to do? If the Conservative Party is shifted, why am I going to stay in that party? I think, when you mentioned Danny Kruger, though, there is a question. I think people do have legitimate concerns over by-elections, etc. And we are about a year into a parliament, and I think it's perfectly legitimate for people to question why somebody has not changed, why somebody's changed party and has not triggered a by-election. I have my own personal opinions
Yeah,
on
well,
what people
that's
should
one
do.
thing I'm not 100% comfortable with, because like, we're only a year into this parliament. So if he had such grave misgivings, you know, if that's strong, he's basically said the Conservatives are finished, they're over. So if he, you don't reach that position in a couple of weeks, do you? He's obviously, he's had to have been discussing with Nigel Farage. He's obviously had to battle with himself and decide what he wants to do. I mean, a year, 12 months isn't a long time. So he's obviously known this or had this feeling for a while. So why did he stand as a Conservative? Sometimes I think it's a bit protection. It's like rats jumping a sinking ship in a way, isn't it? He's just kind of getting out. He's getting out while the getting out's good. So he can say, well, I actually defected to Reform 3 years ago and vote for me now. Sometimes I just think, I mean, these guys get paid a decent wage. And you've got to remember as well, like a lot of these guys, they're MPs, but then if they don't get re-elected, a lot of them don't really have anything else. They've got a lot of them must not have a plan B. So I would say there'll be a lot of Conservatives now considering their position. But I think when you're voted in as an MP, you're voted in on a set of ideals or ideas. You on a manifesto, and you're voting for the party. You're not voting specifically for that person. Okay, they're going to represent your constituency. I get that, but you're voting for the party. And if you voted through the manifesto of the Conservatives, then he's kind of stolen your vote and taken it somewhere else. I mean, it's great for reform. It's great for reform, but at the
Well, I
same
think
time,
what some people would argue is that the Reform UK does not have a fully developed policy offer yet. And yes, they had the contract which they offered at the last general election, but obviously that's being updated. They're making lots of policy announcements. It's all still being developed, and it's very, very early in the day, as it were, to be committing to a manifesto. So I take your point, because there's an argument to say, well, he can't even say, well, here we are, here's a shopping list of all the fabulous things that, Reform have got that I stand for. Here it is all in there. Here it is all in their manifesto. So
yeah,
I
he said,
take
"Oh,
your
the
point on
Conservatives
that.
are finished." So it is.
Yeah,
It
and
is like rats jumping a sinking ship. Like I said, I haven't got. I haven't got a solid opinion one way or another. I'm just saying it concerns me. It's just if I'd have voted for someone, a specific party, I'm not sure I'd be too happy if then they defected to a party that had a completely different set of ideas. I'd be, well,
yeah,
I didn't vote. So
yes,
it concerns me, but at the same time, I'm not strongly one way or the other on it. It just
okay.
I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Danny Kruger, I mean, he has got a majority of 4,716. So, that is a pretty reasonable
Well,
majority. So,
has he got it, or has the Conservative Party got it,
well, there you
or does
go. There
he
you
have? Are
go.
they his vote? Again, I'm just asking the questions. Like, are they his votes, or are they the Conservatives' votes? Have you googled his brother,
No?
Freddie? Apparently, he's
This-
going to be a right nightmare for the Labour Party.
Bum bum. This is a terrible joke.
It is.
Okay, so what about then alternatives? So we're in the very midst talking about political parties. But what about alternatives? So we've got Ben Habib and his advance lot. And of course, we couldn't let this episode go by without remarking on the Unite the Kingdom march that took place at the weekend. I did not attend it. I didn't plan to attend it. So did you attend the Unite the Kingdom march, Gareth? We've just got some video of that. At which apparently there were 110,000 people, according
Yeah,
to the
there weren't
mainstream media.
not many people attended. No, I mean, it's something I would go to, but I would just get severe toilet anxiety. All I see there is at least 250,000 bursting bladders. Like, I go to London, and there is nowhere to go to the toilet in London. I just don't understand. Apart from that one weird place where you stand out in the middle of the street to go to the toilet. Have you ever seen that toilet in the middle of, I can't remember which station it's next to. It's literally a toilet outside that you stand in the open air and just wee into. unless I've got it wrong and I've been indecently exposing myself by accident. But it's true. You stand in the middle of the street and wee in the middle of the street. I've never seen anything like it. And one day I was bursting in. Anyway, I digress. What I'm saying is, yeah, where do all these people go to the toilet? I mean, and there must have been 250,000 people there easily. To say that there was 110, I mean, 110,000 people. There was a Led Zeppelin concert that had over 100,000 people, and that looked tiny compared to the aerial footage that you can see there. So,
well, how many
yeah,
people can you get into Wembley?
Oh God, 60, 80,000, is it? Something like that?
But I mean, it looks like I mean, what's it, a football match? I mean,
some
it looks
people are
like
saying upwards of 1 million. Some
it
people
looks
are
like an
saying,
extraordinary amount of people to me.
it is. And a lot of people are saying, people are laughing at 110,000 people. It looks closer to 500,000 to me. When you look at some of the other videos, literally, the crowd just goes on for forever. It's just unbelievable. All far right fascists, all of them, apparently.
So what this whole lazy hacking of the term far right is just ridiculous. I mean,
It's
we might get
offensive.
onto
It's offensive. I mean, can I just say? I mean, Adolf Hitler was far right. That's what far right is. Someone like Mussolini or Hitler. They were far right. Hitler mass murdered millions of people. That's far right. An old 72-year-old granny, being afraid to go to her city centre because it's just been overrun by people who are just loitering about, and feels like she can't be proud of where she's from anymore and joining a march isn't far right. And it's just ludicrous to just paint everyone with this far right brush, with this tag, like you say, it's just a lazy tagline. How can that many people be far right?
People use the term Nazi, fascist, but those terms are very specific. And what you're actually doing is when you use those terms and bandy them around, you're actually just hijacking the meaning of that term and you're diluting what it means in the actual context of people who really were fascists and people who suffered under fascism. One Labour MP, I think, who was it the other day, called Nigel Farage a fascist. I mean, it's absolutely nonsense. And unfortunately, this is the language of hate, and this is what comes from the left. I don't see any, like you say, it's like the ladies in the pink ladies who were at the Bell Hotel in Epping, other people who've been out demonstrating, the whole raising of the colours, all of that campaign. That is about people saying, actually, we are proud to be British. And for too long, we've had to be afraid to show that we're proud to be British. Because if we try and show that we're proud to be British by raising a St. George's flag, then actually people just think that we're soccer hooligans or that we're thugs. And actually, that's not the case. As you say, there's plenty of people who are proud to be British. And, what does that flag represent? The flag represents Britishness, British culture. And if part of that is some diversity, well, who cares? You can come from any country in the world and actually celebrate being British, but you've got to buy into Britishness. And this whole rubbish that I'm seeing from the left about, the flag is divisive. People are using the flag in a divisive way. How can you use a flag in a divisive way? This is utterly ridiculous. You're either a divisive person or you are not. The flag stands on its own merits. Our national flag stands on its own merits, and its meaning doesn't change to me regardless of the person who's wielding it, because the meaning of that flag is actually in the eye of the beholder. It's not in the eye of the wielder. And that is the fundamental difference. So when you've got the lefties saying that it's being wielded in a way that's aggressive or divisive, no, it's not. It's those left people, those left-leaning people, those people who think it's divisive. It's because in their eyes it is. It's not the people, it's the flag. Because they don't want the flag. They don't like the British flag. They don't want to stand up for being British. They're not interested in British history, British culture, British values as it has been. What they're interested in is a new version of British culture and a new version of British values that basically they've been taught by Stonewall through all the lefty institutions that they're part of. And I
Mm.
think those people who were on that march are just ordinary day-to-day people who are absolutely sick of being told that how they feel doesn't matter and that they have got to be compelled to speak with particular pronouns or whatever under garbage is coming from the lanyard wearing class of our country. And people are sick of it. And at that march, yes, there was some violence, and that is hugely unfortunate, absolutely wrong. It's disgraceful that anybody would assault anybody.
Well,
Nonetheless,
I
assault
don't think
an
some
emergency.
violence even describes it correctly. I mean, there were 23 arrests. So if you're saying, if even if you're being conservative and saying there were 200,000 people there, the fact that there were only 23 arrests, and I was actually listening to it live at some points, and there were a lot of people that said, because there were so many people there and the police were totally unprepared. Um, there was a lot of police there that weren't from London, and a lot of people actually got directed down streets that they shouldn't have been, that weren't on the planned route, actually into the Antifa mob. So the police had actually directed some people down into the counter protesters.
Well,
So,
I
and I
mean,
think that's
I've
where some of
I've
the
heard
violence
that.
started there.
I've heard that, and I wasn't there. But ultimately, I don't understand how you go from being directed down a wrong street to then actually assaulting a police officer. I think that's a bit of a stretch for me. However, I haven't seen it. I don't know what the evidence is. I have seen some video various videos that have been posted on X, and people are claiming that this is horrific violence against police officers when it's quite clear to me from the video that the police are pushing the people back and that it's not the people who are assaulting the police officers, but the police are
Well,
pushing the
that's
people
what I'm
back.
saying. I mean,
But
I haven't
look,
seen any
there's been,
videos of anyone assaulting police, but who
well,
got arrested?
I'm sure,
Was it the Antifa guys? Was it
I don't
the
know.
well, yeah, but that's important, isn't it? It's important to actually know.
That will come out in the fullness of time, but nobody's ever going to support anybody assaulting anybody else. And I don't know how those events took place. But I think you're right. I think there's probably nearer 500,000 people there. And I believe the latest count is there's 25 people have been arrested. These are for, I think, criminal damage, violent disorder, assault, those sorts of offences. So, when you compare it to the Notting Hill Carnival, which of course is always billed as a family friendly event. And obviously, this event was far right fascist mob. Notting Hill Carnival, I think the last count, there was 528 arrests. Okay, that was over 3 days. If you actually take it on a basis of averages, it would seem that there was a lot less disorderly behaviour at this event than what you would see at the Notting Hill Carnival. And there were certainly no weapons found. There were no reports of any sexual crimes against people, which there were with the Notting Hill Carnival. And, it's really interesting when you see Sadiq Khan's posts on X. In terms of the march on Saturday, he was very grateful to the police, and rightly so. I mean, I certainly really would not want that job. And they do an amazing job having to go out and face these people, and they do put themselves in harm's way. And it's a very, very challenging situation to be in, I'm sure, when there are that many people and you're doing crowd control for the ordinary Bobby who's out there with tens of thousands of people. But ultimately, you've got Mayor Khan saying that it was a fabulous family event and everything was absolutely wonderful at Notting Hill Carnival, and wasn't it all absolutely brilliant? But then when he does a post about this event, he thanks the police and talks about the violence and says how awful it is. Well, when he was posting out about the Notting Hill Carnival, he didn't say anything about the number of people who'd been sexually assaulted, did he? And how outrageous that was. So he didn't seem to be very bothered about that.
No. Well, and Keir Starmer, he tweeted out today how, like I say, going back to what you were saying about the flag, he was describing how we won't allow people to use the flag to, I can't remember his exact tweet now, but use it as a way to create division. just because of the colour of someone's skin. I mean, like I say, it just doesn't make any sense. There's so much emphasis put on the flag as if like it's an Al Qaeda flag or something. I don't understand.
It's
If you
because
don't,
fundamentally they find the flag offensive. He
yeah, but I
doesn't
don't understand
think.
why. If you don't like that flag is stitched onto soldiers' uniforms when they're sent into war to die. You know that flag's okay when it's stitched onto the shoulder of a marine that's about to lay down his life to protect the freedoms you've got, so that you can say how much you hate that flag. But surely, if you hate the flag, which is a symbol of Britain and everything, our British values, our British culture, everything about Britain, if you hate that flag, then surely you hate the country. And if you hate the country, then surely you're the one that's divisive. You're the one that is the problem, because all I can see is people marching to try and protect their own values. And
Well, and
yeah, there's not.
fundamentally, one of the British values is around tolerance of other people's opinions and should be around freedom of speech. And people on the left don't want people to wield the flag that they don't like because they want that flag on their own terms. But you can't have everything on your own terms. That's the fundamental nature of our country. And we are a very tolerant country. We're very accepting. We're very welcoming to foreigners, actually. We're welcome to immigrants. And we have been for a very long time. But the left don't seem to be able to sort of handle this cognitive dissonance they've got between wanting to fly the flag themselves and saying it's all wonderful, but not really letting those horrible far right, low life, working class scumbags, they're not allowed to do it because they're all a bit thick and don't really know what they think, aren't they? So for them, it's an elitist symbol.
There was a lot of again, a lot of the people on that march were middle class. You know, there was a lot of middle class people out in that march as well. It's not just all about the knuckle dragging far right guys. I mean, there are just normal people that are out there marching, and the veil of concern is covering more and more of society. There are people who would never go out and march, people who wouldn't be associated with that kind of movement, that are just going out there to express their concern. People are just concerned. So I don't understand why, if people are concerned and they want to go out and, I mean, gee, we have these Palestine rallies every week. Do you know what I mean? We've got thousands of people marching for Palestine every week, and the one time, I mean, I don't know how many marches we've had this year. I think we've had three of these marches. But the one time we go out and try and celebrate British culture, it's all negative. Everything that surrounds it is negative, and I just don't understand. It's very strange. It is very strange. But just to kind of expand on what you were saying then, in terms of people labelling people as Nazi and far right, what about the Charlie Kirk incident? I mean, that kind of feeds into what you were saying about how we can brand
Well,
people
it's
as
just
Nazis.
factional. It's factional. And, you've got people like that Richard Bergen. His language is very inflammatory. There's a lot of people on the left, the Lib Dems, and their language is just super inflammatory. And I just feel very concerned because what they're actually doing is they are stoking tension. They are stoking division. This thing of calling people far right, calling people fascist, this is just, it's untrue. It's highly irresponsible. It's very, very dangerous. And, when you're talking about Charlie Kirk, ultimately, he was not even a politician. I mean, we've had politicians who've lost their lives to fanaticists. And it's deeply, deeply worrying. And I do feel for anybody who's in public life. Why would anybody want to become an MP or go out into the public and talk about and express their opinions? Because surely you're at risk of some complete lunatic either shooting you or in the UK coming and stabbing you. And the language that the left are using is not helpful. I just don't see right-wing commentators. They use the term far left, but they almost use it occasionally I see them use it and it's like it's used in jest, as if to say, oh, the far left, as if, well, you're calling us far right, we'll call you far left. And I think it's very dangerous. I think it's very, very
We're breeding
dangerous.
nutters. I feel like we're a factory, a nutter breeding factory. It's just we're churning out nutters. This all this kind of ideology from people who are left leaning. It's like they attack the person rather than the argument. So if
Yeah.
a lot of people on the left, if they don't agree with something, it's like they don't have the ability to accept the fact that their opinion may be wrong. So if they can't beat the argument, they try and eliminate the person, and they either try and eliminate the person by tarnishing their reputation or cancelling them, or in the most extreme, shooting them. Literally, I can't, because Charlie Kirk, he didn't preach hate. That's the thing. He had opinions that you would maybe disagree with, or some people may disagree with some of the things he said or the ideas that he had, but he didn't preach hate, and he didn't say he never like called people to arms. He never spoke about violence. He was a Christian. He advocated the Bible and the teachings of Jesus. He didn't say anything that I would consider to be absolutely out there. He just said, don't give puberty blockers to kids. He thought he didn't believe in abortion. People disagreed with him about that, but that was just his opinion. I don't see why someone had to get into the mind of someone where it's like, I hate this guy's opinion so much, I'm literally going to kill him. I'm going to sacrifice my own life, possibly get the death penalty, but I'm going to kill this guy because
And the worst thing there's people
like
celebrating his death. There are people celebrating his death online.
They're nutters. I mean, we are breeding nutters. You've got people this guy was 31-year-old. He had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. He's left a widow now. He was just a 30-year-old guy, 31-year-old guy, just going out, he was talking to people.
You're right.
Look at that.
Look at the guy, and I can't remember his name. You'll tell me his name. Who is the president-elect of the Oxford Union? Who now there has been a campaign to try and get him removed, and you have to have 150 signatures. And there's a guy, Freedom for. Oh, I can't remember what it's called. I can't think of the chap's name now. But anyway, he's an old alumni of Oxford.
Well, he debated Charlie Kirk at Oxford, yeah.
It debated him, and absolutely vile comments about him. I mean, really, I am a free speech evangelist, and I don't think that what he said was acceptable. I know that what he said was not acceptable to me. And I don't think most right-minded people would think that the comments he made were acceptable. However, I defend his right to say them. What I don't defend is his right to think that he can just walk around in society and bear no responsibility or no negative publicity or outcome because of his actions. I'm not a free speech absolutist. However, there are circumstances when you shouldn't say certain things, in my opinion. But this guy, I mean, who on earth would want to employ him? So, yeah, he can have his freedom of speech. He can stand behind what he says. But quite frankly, why would any right-minded organisation want him to be their figurehead? Why would anybody in future want to employ him? Because ultimately, what you say, that betrays who you are as a person. And this person is a vile, vile human being. He is absolutely sick. And not only that, I don't even know how he got into Oxford anyway, because he only got an A and a B, didn't he? I don't think he even got the usual required grades. But he's a complete and utter idiot, and he is just a vile, vile human being. And he's like that Bob Villain character who's, made the gestures about Charlie Kirk at that concert the other evening. Again, it's just completely vile. But vote with your feet. I think, if anybody wants to go to those concerts, more fool them. And quite frankly, that was another example of him being in a situation where the spectators were all gratuitously cheering him on, all baying like what he's saying is absolutely wonderful. And who are these people? Who bought these people up? Where are
That's
these
what I'm
people's
saying. They're
parents?
nutters.
Who are these people's
They're
parents?
nutters.
Because those audiences are just as bad as the people on the stage, as far as I'm concerned. If you cheer on people making vile comments like that, you are just as vile as them.
Well, it's just a collective insanity, isn't it? It's just literally people are just so. I don't even know. I don't even know what the answer is. It's just they're just collectively so vile. But I mean, this guy can say whatever he wants. You know, at the moment, we do live in a well, we're meant to live in a free country. But the problem is, it's the content of what he says, which is so violent, which is why he should go. I mean, he's bringing Oxford University into disrepute. He is allowed to say those specific words. He's even allowed to laugh if he wants to laugh. But it's the content of the things that he's saying that he has to be judged on. And I don't
Yes.
think that a person in his position has any right to be in that position if they hold an opinion like that. And that's the difference between being able to say something and the things that you actually say. So I don't
Yes.
think
Well,
I
it's
don't think
moral consequences versus legal consequences, isn't
exactly.
it?
You can say the words. You can say the words. I mean, you know, I've got every right to walk up to someone who I work with and call, you know, I don't know, just call them the most horrendous name in the world. Well, I can say that, but if I'm going to insult someone to such a degree, I may lose my job over it. But you can't put me in jail for saying it. But there are consequences for the things that you do say, and that's what I'm saying. Even though he can say it, he shouldn't have said it. I mean, it's just the most vile thing. I mean, I just don't understand how anyone can celebrate the death of a person who just used to go to university campuses, literally just to talk and debate people. He just used to sit there and debate people. Now you have a that's surely that's the whole structure of how a democracy works. Yeah, we all have different ideas. We get together, we debate them. Some people might change their ideas one way, some people might change their ideas another way. But we then collectively get together, thrash it out, and then we all vote on what we want, and whoever gets the most votes, that's where we go. That's the direction we're going. But if you can't debate, if we're getting to a point where you can't even put those opinions out there anymore, then democracy is going to die. Literally, if we're getting to a point where we can't talk, then there is no democracy anymore, is there? And it's getting to a point now where if you're on the right of politics, these left-leaning loons are literally they're just going to try and get rid of they're not trying to win the debate, they're just trying to get rid of the people who they can't debate against and that's what and he's paid the ultimate price. He's paid the ultimate price for his beliefs, which weren't that right leaning. You know, he believed that life is started at the point of conception. You know, he did not believe in abortion in the slightest. But rather than someone just having an opposing view and putting that across sensibly, people would just scream, shout, swear, call him a fascist.
Yeah, but there are many, many people in our society who are the product of the last 20, 30 years of education. And it's this whole thing of nobody's allowed to win in a race at school, give
Mm,
everybody a medal. Everybody must have a medal. Everybody must participate. Everybody must be able to win. And the irony of that is that a lot of these children, were probably brought up to, oh, share everything, be nice, be kind. But they only want to be nice and be kind when people agree with them. As soon as somebody doesn't agree with them, they don't want to be nice. They don't want to be kind. And quite
no.
frankly, I think that all of those people who are at that march on Saturday are representative of that person that just says, I've had enough. I'm not taking this anymore. End of.
Well, that's the thing. It's just it's people's because we mollycoddle everybody in society now. No one's allowed to be hurt. No one's allowed. No one's allowed to be offended anymore. When people hear an opposing view or an idea that they don't agree with, we're getting to a point where we're raising children that don't even know how to handle this type of, like you say, they're mollycoddled so much. They don't know how to handle it when someone has a different opinion to them rather than being able to put your opinion across and maybe even admit defeat on certain subjects, or maybe reconsider. People's opinions change over time, but it's just a case of, it's like we're breeding a generation of spoiled kids that have a certain way of thinking, and when someone challenges it, they have a paddy. But when you're an adult, it can manifest itself. That paddy can manifest itself as a kid with a bolt action sniper rifle.
So what are your final thoughts then on the left-leaning liberals and how they approach freedom of speech? What would you like to say to them?
Keep interrupting me.
Sorry.
Right. We need to get rid of the extreme left-wing ideology out of all the institutions in this country. We need to get back to the centre.